Okay. Could I ask all officers and guests who are joining remotely to turn their cameras off so that only councillors, lay members or co-opted members are on screen? You're asked to turn on your camera when presenting reports or responding to questions, but please turn them back off when your item is finished. Could I ask Democratic Services to begin recording? Yeah, I've done so. Pnawn da, croeso i cyfarfod, diolch am bawb am dod. Hello and welcome to Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council's thriving Merthyr Tydfil Scrutiny on Tuesday the 16th of June 2026. Please note that this meeting may be recorded and broadcast via the authority's internet site. Any person in view of camera is, by virtue of attending, consenting to being filmed, and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings being used as outlined. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. I have 3, Judith Jones, Howard Jackson and David Chaplin. There's no others? No? Okay. Moving on, agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Nobody? Councillor Thomas?
Chair, I'm a former director of the Cyfarthfa Foundation.
Thank you. Nobody else? Okay, thank you. Agenda item 3, minutes from previous meeting. This is to approve the accuracy of the minutes of the scrutiny meeting on the 28th of April 2026. Councillor Jones?
I move, Chair.
Yep. Any second?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah. Okay. Item agenda 4. Action logs. The action logs have been published today, shows the actions which are outstanding from the 25-26 cycle. Most of the long-term actions and updates will be given when appropriate. These outstanding actions will be shown in future logs, and a new action log will be start the meeting from the next cycle. Okay. Has anybody got anything to raise on the action logs? No? Okay, item agenda 5, forward work programme. As you can see, it's a bit sparse at the moment. So over the next couple of weeks, we're hoping to meet with officers and directors to discuss the forward work programme, and I'm hoping by the middle of July we'll have a forward work programme meeting for all members. So okay, anybody anything to say? No? Okay. Moving on, agenda item 6. Oh, we're going to flip it around. So we've got empty homes first, and then we're going to do Cyfarthfa after. So, as is shown on the report, item agenda 7, annual empty property strategy report. I'm going to invite Councillor David Jones to present.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to declare that I did try to interject earlier on, but I need to leave after this meeting. I've got another engagement to go to. The purpose of this report is to update scrutiny on the progress made in delivering the aims and objectives of the Empty Property Strategy 2022 to 26. At full council on the 2nd of February 2022, members approved the Empty Home Strategy 2022 to 26, which highlighted the wasted resource in the context of housing need across the county borough. The aim of the strategy is to bring 7% of long-term empty homes back into use each year, with a target for the duration of the strategy to bring 200 empty properties back into use. Section 34 sets out the 4 categories of action used to bring those empty properties back into use. A review of the progress of the strategy was completed in March 2025 and reported to Cabinet in July 2025. Also, scrutiny members received an update action plan and performance update in their meeting in April 2025. Section 5, Table 1, shows that the annual target has been met or exceeded every year, with a 200 property target being achieved by the end of the strategy period. Various other information is given in Section 5, which gives scrutiny members a clear insight regarding activity breakdown, grant activity, enforcement and locations of empty properties. Section 5.9 to 5.12 describes the risk assessment of empty properties and actions of the 7 highest risk ones. The strategy will continue to be delivered during 2026 to 27 to ensure that targets are met by the end of the strategy period, and an annual update will be presented to scrutiny in 27-28. A successor empty property strategy will be developed in 2027, which will be presented to Council for adoption. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Open it up to questions. Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Chair. Can I go, first of all, I'll signify the page as well. It's page 62, 5.1, where there's a table there, long-term empty properties brought back into use since 2022. Just two queries. It says in 25-26, there were 47 brought back into use. On page 63, in the block in the middle of the page, it says interventions resulting in properties brought back into use 25-26. It says 46. Is there any reason for the discrepancy of one?
Sorry, which was the first?
Right, it's page 62, paragraph 5.1. And then if you look at the block in the middle of the page on page 63, and that's a result of an intervention, resulting in properties being brought back into use, the figure is 46. But the number on page 62 in the block there is 47. So it's one more than.
Yeah, it probably is an error, but I can check. Sometimes if they don't fit in with a specific category, but to be honest, I'll be guessing now. I don't know the answer. I can check that for you.
Right.
It's probably an inaccuracy, to be honest.
And in that 47, which it says is being brought back into use, could it be that a few of those are because the owners of the properties, because they're paying extra council tax with this extra premium, have decided to sell them rather than pay the extra council tax year on year? Or is there nobody?
So you're looking at table 2, yeah? That's the one.
Yeah.
So, so council tax, obviously, give us the data to environmental health, and we'll check how many are empty at the beginning of the year, and then we'll compare at the end, and we'll go through the ones that have been actually brought back into use, and we'll cross-reference them as to what actions we've taken. I don't know, does that answer your question?
I think so.
Yeah.
And so sticking with the block on page 63, method of intervention, the first one is financial assistance grants. That's 25 out of the 46 has been brought back into use. Where would they be able to access these financial assistance grants?
So there's a national empty home. Sorry, there's a national empty homes grant scheme that's run by RCT on behalf of several local authorities, and yeah, residents, owners can link into that via our website or contact RCT directly, but the information is on our website anyway.
Right. And is this the same grant scheme that's referred to under paragraph 5.6 on page 64, where it's got Welsh Government has confirmed that for applications approved for the 1st of April 26, local authorities will no longer be required to provide the 10% match funding element. It goes on to say, last paragraph, Welsh Government has also confirmed an extension of the National Empty Home Grant Schemes until September this year. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, yes.
So, do we know the reason why the Welsh Government are stopping it? Because it's clearly
Well,
helping a considerable number of people.
Yeah, they haven't said they've stopped it. It's continuing until September. We don't know because of the new government that's come in last month. We don't know what their intention is, but they have extended it
Right.
until September, and they've removed the 10% match funding by local authority for those that are approved after 1st of April. So any that were approved prior to that, we would still be liable, and I think it's in the report.
So we don't know if the new Welsh Government is going to carry this on after September.
We don't know after September what might happen. We're waiting for that.
Right. And sticking on the same page, page 64, there's a table there under the heading Location of Empty Properties as of the 1st of April 2026. If I can seek clarification of that. You've got Class A, Class E, then for properties empty 6 to 12 months. What is PCLC?
So this data has been received from council tax, so I'll hand over to Mark to answer
All
that.
right, okay.
Councillor Jones. Right, you've got the various classifications as far as council tax is concerned. You've got the Class A, which are properties acquired and undergoing renovation. The Class C, which is just an empty and unfurnished dwelling, which is exempt for up to 6 months. The PCLC is a property which has got a full charge upon it, where the statutory exemption has expired, and we can't charge a premium because you can't charge a premium on there. So in council tax terms, a long-term empty property is when a premium kicks in, which is after 12 months, but for environmental health is 6 months. So we work in slightly different timescales as far as what is a classification as a long-term empty property.
Right.
So it's just a term that we use within the system, and the Prem 100, but it should be 150 and 200, that they are the premium charges. Maybe to answer some of the questions you answered there, there has been a significant reduction in the number of properties as far as premium is concerned. Certainly within the financial year 25-26, I think that is as a result of the staggered approach that this chamber voted in for the April 25 financial year and continued in 26 and 27. By putting the staggered approach on there, we've seen a significant drop on the number of dwellings on there. There's about 90 properties between years 1 and 5 less than what it was previously.
Right.
However, maybe due to an element of engagement, which is maybe what you were asking for, there is probably 46 additional properties where we've identified composite, where there's accommodation through a business premises you can't let out separately, that they no longer come in with a premium, so that they treat it as an exception. So there's about 18 of those currently, and there has been a significant movement with properties up for sale.
Right.
So we have seen a lot of far greater engagement from the public, with the Revenues Department in contacting us and making us aware of properties up for sale. So there are quite additional accepted properties, which is up to 12 months on there.
I'm trying to get real clarity on exactly the number of properties that are completely empty, where landowners are doing absolutely nothing about it. So sticking with that block on page 64, the total number there is 900. So you take into account what you just said. But am I right in saying that of that 900, there would be certain properties where perhaps the person occupying it is in care, old people's home, and that 900, if you were in the forces, is that taken into account as well?
There's a couple of questions for there. If I mention the forces, if you're in the armed forces and you're leaving your premises empty and it's furnished, it wouldn't be counted within this. It would be an exception.
Right.
There's a 50% charge for those that would leave their property empty, as it currently stands, I haven't got any.
Right,
Not for that particular classifications.
right,
For those that are in residential care, there isn't a time limit on there at the present, but we monitor them regularly to have a look at. And for those, the properties that have been left in the estate where probate haven't granted, there's a number of legislative changes, which some are beneficial, for the taxpayer, for those who buy in properties, so that, may miss out because somebody haven't done the work, as you suggest previously. So there's new legislative changes coming the 1st of April 2026. For those who haven't applied for probate before, whether they could have left the property empty indefinitely and not having to pay council tax, from the 1st of April 26, they've got 2 years.
right,
And then the clock starts ticking and they get charged a premium on that.
right.
So there have been a number of significant changes on there to encourage people, well, to assist people and to encourage people to do something with the property to bring it back into use.
Right. So clearly the figure of 900 consists of a number of things that people have got to take into account. So going back to page 62, the block there, in the top column, which is 2526, the number of long-term empty properties is 479, and that's the total number of empty properties. Am I right? Over 6 months. But again, of that 479, some of those could be in the process of carrying out work, refurbishment, etc. So that's got to be taken into account.
No, that would hit the exemption within the council tax, wouldn't it, Mark?
You're looking at? Yes, you are right. If works are being carried out on the property, if you were to leave your property empty, for example, then I'm going to give you 6 months, right? As long as there's no furniture, I'm going to give you 6 months to do whatever you're going to do to the property, and I'm not going to charge you on that. If you haven't finished the work by the first day after 6 months, I'm going to charge you 100%. So we're still doing work on the property, but I'm now charging you council tax on that. If you haven't finished after 12, I'm going to charge you a premium.
Right.
But you still haven't finished the work.
Right.
So, it depends on what question you're actually asking there, because you're talking about decorating, renovating. There is a time limit to what I can allow you to do. You still may be doing works to the property, but there's only a certain limitation of time that I can give you without penalising you and asking you to pay the council tax.
So, just to come,
Yeah.
is it okay to come in? So those 479 are what we consider that are outside any exemptions
Right.
that do fit into the definition of
Right.
over 6 months on the 1st of April. It might be different today, but that's what it was. You have to pin a point, and that's where we pin the point.
Right, okay. And if we, where are we by? Yes, on page 65, under 510, there's a block there of, refers to 7 high-risk properties. And you've listed what you're attempting to do with each of those 7. When you come down to number 6, no action possible, no enforcement action possible, and no contact details for the owner. I'm not going to name the property. But am I correct in saying it's a certain property within my ward that's been vacant for approximately 32 years?
There will be one of those. One of those will be. I can't clarify whether it's number 6, but yes, I know the one you're referring to.
Yeah. I've written to yourselves and waiting for a reply on that one at the moment. I think that's all the questions for now, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. On Councillor Jones's question, obviously it was raised. Bill, do you want? I think you might want to ask it.
Right. Change the name, Scott, get him back then. No, we just put it on, let me speak. On 510, on the action or date, number 6, Because they say no action force, no time, no enforcement, and it's a cost, because you can't, we haven't got any support from the house owner, we haven't got support from nobody else. House association don't want to buy the property, so that's be left, right? So I'm looking for an answer, say, how can we change it, because it happened to us a long time ago, and when the house got empty, it was empty. 2 hours next door for dump. It was a mess. Everybody hanging about there. All the litter problems, everything. So how can we support something like that to take it forward, or and support the residents in that area, because it's a nice zone at the end of the day. I don't think none of us like to live in a place like that on the street. So we've got to look at it. So how can we resolve it? If we can't, we can't, but we've got to do something.
Yeah, it's been a useful exercise to risk assess these, so we can now focus on these. We haven't got any additional resource to do that. Of course, there's no legislation that says you must, use your property for its intended use. We've got levers. We've now got the strong lever of council tax that helps us. There is enforcement action. Where properties are impacting on neighbouring dwellings, like you just mentioned, there is legislation and public nuisance legislation to cover that. It is a tricky one. We have a steering group of officers now, and planners come to that as well. And there's section 15 of the Town and Country Planning Act. That's any detriment to the amenity type of sort of section. But it is a difficult one. We don't want to see these in the community, and this is why we've got these 7 now. And this list, hopefully some will go off, like property number 5 is now off the list because it's occupied, but the others will come on as we risk assess the longer one. I haven't got a definitive answer. We've got these, we will focus. If there's new policies that come out of Welsh Government, new incentives, we'll have this in mind. But at the moment, there isn't a solution. We're keeping an eye on them. If they become dangerous, we'll be referring them to building control. But there isn't a magic bullet for them, unfortunately.
Oh, thank you much. Yeah, I've been looking at that and you can tell. Right? So, not one thing, right? The part is, we'll be empty for every day, and that's what we're going to stop. And I don't know how we're going to do it, because I read the report. We are getting it slowly through the report, and I think the next phase will be a big difference as well. But yeah, thank you very much.
I think that the question that we all want to know is, right, okay, it says no action possible, no enforcement action possible, no contact details from the owner. So surely there's something else after that. That isn't the end goal, because obviously that'll, if you can't find it now, what means you're going to find it in 5 years? That property will be empty forever and a day.
Yeah, we have looked at...
Oh, could you press the microphone, sorry?
There is compulsory purchase order, but the...
Yeah, sorry, can we just pause for a second? I'll tell you now when I come off the camera. There's a glitch on the sound has gone off live, so they've got... Right, okay, no problem.
Yes, there are a range of things, but, compulsory purchase order, we've looked at that for some of the properties, but ultimately you have to, or you need to have an end use. What's your goal on that? And it will cost the authority at the moment. I don't think we've got the budget to do some of these, but if we think there is, a route through, we can get some grant money. We're always on the look for that. And if you get further complaints, we'll deal with those, but it doesn't resolve it long term. We recently took one case to the corporate management team to discuss the options, but there was a liability for the authority with that particular one. So they're there. We are focusing on them, and we'll do what we can. But these are the difficult ones, and to be fair, officers have worked really hard on this in the last few years. We're doing well against the target. And we're even having other local authorities contact us now as, you know, an example of good practice. But these are still the challenging ones, 7 of them. You know, you could have an officer working full-time on some of these, but we haven't got that. But we are pulling together using, you know, our colleagues in council tax, planning, housing, just to try and work together on getting a solution by looking at housing associations and if there's anybody else interested out there as well. So they're not being forgotten about, but they are hard to resolve. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Chair. Sean, on table 2 and 5.3, over 50% of the houses that's been brought back into use has been due to the intervention of the empty property grant scheme. So what difficulty does a house have to be in, or how long does it have to be empty before a grant would be approved?
I don't know the answer at the moment. I'd have to dig up the details of the grant scheme. But yeah, they're for owner occupiers.
Because it's been so successful looking at the tables. I think it would be useful for, you know, the general public in the public domain to understand, you know, what they can do and what intervention is there. Right? I think that would be very, very useful, even if we do a comms piece on it, you know, because I think that is really positive news.
So we did do a comms piece on, you know, the financial assistance that's available, and it is on our website. But yeah, we could do something around that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mark, do you want-
If I make a comment on that, Mr Thomas, from the inquiries that we received from RCT to administer the grant scheme, the property has to be empty for 12 months before an application could be submitted for it to be considered for a grant.
Thank you. Phil, do you want to come in?
It's a bit of wording for clarity, really. I should have asked this at the start, shouldn't I? But 5.1, just two terms being used in 5.1. 5.1's headline says long-term empty homes returned into use. And then we jump to the table where it says long-term empty properties. Now, are homes the same as properties?
Yes, and
Well, can I
Yes,
suggest
in this
that
context,
the
yes,
same
yes.
word is used then? Because
Accept
I,
that.
as a member of the public,
Yeah.
I was quite confused over that. So we're not talking about church vestries or social clubs or things like that. We're actually talking about things which are designated as homes.
I accept that point. It's a very valid point. The name of the strategy is Empty Properties, and it's come up time and time, but it's a 5-year strategy, but it's coming to the end this year, and we'll make sure that we've got consistency of terminology in there.
Yeah, I
But
was quite
these are all sort of residential properties intended for that use.
Great, okay, that clarifies that. And just one other thing on a similar kind of point. All these homes stroke properties, to just clarify there, they are all owned privately.
Yes,
Yeah.
so they're not.
None of them are owned by the council. We're not in a Birmingham situation where we're finding our own vehicles for picking up for breaking the congestion charge. They're all owned privately.
Yeah, they're not registered social landlords,
No,
so
was my
they're
other
just
one, yeah.
privately owned. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. That's just for clarity, Chair. Thank you very much.
Good questions. Any other questions? Councillor Jones?
Yes, so again, this is for clarity, page 65. If you look at paragraph 5.9, risk assessment of empty properties, it says members have previously advised that all properties empty for over 10 years were risk assessed in December 24. Then you go down to same page, 5.12. During 25-26, all properties empty for over 5 years were risk assessed. I'm easily confused. Is both of those correct?
Sorry, the first paragraph he talks
Is-
about,
is
5.9, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
So 5.9 relates to properties over 10 years empty. We've done all of those. And then you go to paragraph,
5.2, during 25, all properties empty for over 5 years. So does
Yeah.
it mean that every property over 5 years included the ones over 10 years?
no, it's between 5 and 10 years is that second one relate to.
Oh,
Yeah,
fine.
so we've started looking at the other categories now.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, that's fine.
thank you.
Okay, any further questions? No, nobody's indicated. Comments? Councillor Thomas?
No, Chair, it's pleasing. It's a pleasing report, when you see a strategy and a policy working and achieving what was set out and maybe overachieve as well. So I think you've got to applaud the officers really for, the great work over the timing of the strategy. Well done. Well done, guys.
I'll pass that back to the officers as well. Thank you, and the steering group. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Smith?
Yeah, no, I read the report and I think what a change it was since we talked about it last year. Because we had so many empties, so much concern about the community charge not coming into the coffers of local authorities. But we've seen a big difference. And it's the first year, good. See what happens in the second year and see what happens down the line. Because we've got some big buildings there, especially 1 and 2 on Brecon Road and all-level mortgages places. So we've got to look at them, and because we don't, we just left it and people get in there and not the right type of tenants. Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill. Councillor Jones?
Yes, I concur with both remarks. I think the fact is that together with the premium on the council tax and the work that you're doing in the Environmental Health Department, it's a two-pronged attack, frankly, which is working. I note that in 25-26, the percentage and the numbers, albeit small, but they've gone up, that you brought back into use. But, and there's always a but, and in the 11 wards, we've all got certain properties that are a nuisance. They are complete eyesore. They attract litter, overgrowth, and I won't name the property, but I'm sure, Sean, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There is absolutely no one can live in this property. It's got a tin roof, which many years ago, or metal roof rather, was put on by the council, and there's no windows there. And it's dreadful. So there are real issues, and as Councillor Thomas said, no one wants to live next door to any of these. And it is really frustrating that you've got residents who are living very close proximity to them, and there are owners who frankly couldn't care less and have over the years done nothing whatsoever to improve their properties and to sell them on.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Phil, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It is connected with Councillor Jones's point. Table 5.8, the location of empty properties. Is that information confidential? Where they are, for instance? Not that I want to see them, I just thought as a member of the public, is that information of the location of the empty properties confidential?
Yeah, I'll hand you to Mark on this
Yeah,
because
we're on comments now, but I'll get an answer for you, and then
Okay, thank you.
we'll bring that to you. Do you want? We'll take it off. Well, I'll turn my speaker off. You can answer.
Sorry, thank you. The information is available, but obviously internal. The approach has always been never to put out in the public domain the location of empty dwellings for the reasons as Councillor Jones has mentioned there, for the potential attraction of vandalism and further problems within the various community. Is shared within the wider group for relevance, as in Sean's team and under the empty property steering group. But I would not be happy to put that information in the public domain. So.
Yeah, it is online though. It'll be produced as part of the report on the council's website. So my mistake. Sorry. Okay. Nobody else is indicating on comments. I just like to thank you for the report. It's echo what everybody else has said, especially with our ongoing housing crisis. It's great to see properties being brought back into use, and I think, as Councillor Jones said, you know, if we can get to the nitty gritty of the long term eyesores, then we'd be on a winner then. So, but thank you for all your hard work and bringing the report in. Thank you. You're welcome to stay though. Okay, moving on. Item agenda, what were we? 6. Kvath Foundation. I don't know who's presenting. Geraint, do you want to come in?
There we are. There we are. Press the button. I'll start again then. I'm Geraint Davies. I chair the Cyfarthfa Foundation. On my left is Jess Marnie, who's the chief executive, and on my right, Gemma Duncan, who is the director for branding and engagement. I'm really glad for this opportunity to bring you up to date on where we are with the Cyfarthfa project, because it's been quite a long time, I think, since I last sat in this particular chamber. To be honest, the gestation period has been rather longer than I would have liked, but we had the interruption of COVID. We had the delivery of the Ian Ritchie master plan. We've had some funding of the Cyfarthfa Foundation by Welsh Government. And of course, last year we had the bicentenary year. And I'm sure that Jess and Gemma will tell you about that, because I think it was a terrific success. So here we are, 2026. Some of the first improvement works are actually taking place at the castle, funded by a combination of this council and CADU. So I think that things are accelerating somewhat. Our bid to the Heritage Lottery Fund is in. And I hope that in the next 6 months we'll see some progress with that, such that you know, if all goes well, I'd like to think that before the end of that period we'll be starting to think about recruiting the architects to actually undertake the planning of the works. Now, I just want to say a few words by way of introduction, just to make sure that everybody grasps the scale and the import of what we're aiming at. You know? I must say, whenever I think of projects like this, I always think back to Rodri Morgan, the first minister in the Welsh government. And I heard him say at one speech, he said, the thing about Wales, he said, we had a very good 19th century and a very bad 20th century. And I did say to Rodri, I said, as broad brushes go, that's about as broad as you can get. But, you know, we're now in the 21st century, and I think we want to go back with Merthyr having a much better century. So this project, I think, is going to greatly enhance the image of Merthyr Tydfil, not just here in Wales, but I hope beyond Wales, throughout the United Kingdom, and even beyond these shores. And I hope too that it might do something to actually change Merthyr's view of itself. Because I think that's very, very important in communities, particularly in communities that have had a pretty rough ride over quite a long time. And I think the Cyfarthfa project is going to do this in a number of ways. One, by foregrounding not just the local importance of Merthyr Tydfil, but the world importance of Merthyr Tydfil in the history of the Industrial Revolution. You know, foregrounding that, I think it's very easy to forget just how significant Merthyr was. Second, I think, when you go into Cyfarthfa Castle now, one of the most impressive things there is the collection of art. And so the second thing is, we want to make Cyfarthfa one of the most prominent art venues in Wales. When you think of what the castle manages to do with a small handful of rooms, imagine that space multiplied 4, 5, or 6 times. The potential of what you can do is significant. Third, I think, is let's start thinking about Cyfarthfa as a possible venue for performances and conferences. I've been involved in the past with Welsh National Opera, and at one stage, I wanted to bring the WNO orchestra to Merthyr to run a concert, and there wasn't a venue that we could bring it to. So Merthyr, in my view, desperately needs a venue. And the fourth thing, I think, is to make the foundation itself, the Cyfarthfa Foundation, a really effective vehicle for attracting cultural funding to Merthyr. When I look around, I see who in Merthyr, where is the body that's actually seeking out money to actually improve the cultural dispensation with Merthyr. There's a desperate need, I think, for cultural investment. And I think in the foundation, I hope we will have an organization that has got the critical mass and influence to affect that. But let me just come on to the castle itself, because this is central to what we're trying to do. Every time I speak about Cyfarthfa, I say we're not about some minor alterations or a simple upgrade to the building. We want actually to transform that building. We want to bring the whole of that building back into use, and that's a big strategic change of direction for Cyfarthfa. And it's also, I think, a transformation of the content and the status of the museum. It's back to that issue of turning it from a local museum into a national institution. And I think that will have a much wider effect, in fact, a transforming effect, I hope, on Merthyr Tydfil itself in a number of ways. One, as I said, you create a cultural venue of UK stature. You make a major contribution to education and culture for the whole community. You enhance the profile and the marketing of the town. And I think that is going to make a very, very significant difference. Because, when you look at what we are planning to do, currently, I think just after the COVID pandemic, visitors to Cyfarthfa, annual numbers of visitors were down. I think at one stage they were down under 30,000. It went up to about 35,000. It was bigger last year during the bicentenary, right? But we want to see 200,000, 250,000, 300,000 people in time visiting to Cyfarthfa. That is going to have a massive input. It forces you to rethink everything about the castle, about the grounds, about parking. Also, how does the rest of the town take advantage of it?
You know, I think this is a real game-changing opportunity. And if you think that's not possible, I just point you to the National Botanic Garden of Wales in Llanarthny, which is 60 miles west of where we are sitting. In the last 2 years, its visitor numbers have gone from 160,000 to 211,000. Now, if Llanarthny can get 211,000 60 miles west of here, Merthyr, at the junction of the A470 and the A465, ought to be registering hundreds of thousands of visitors to Cyfarthfa. And lastly, and I think this is sometimes underestimated, I think this will reinforce Merthyr's regional status as a sort of capital of the heads of the valleys. I think that's in the interests of the whole town. So I will end it there. There are a number of issues that we will need to address, whether it's one stage or two, how we transfer the asset and so on. But I think this is one of the biggest opportunities that Merthyr has got, and we are, because we're conscious of the size of Merthyr as a local authority, we are pressing Heritage Lottery Fund and we are pressing Welsh Government to actually join in this terrific venture.
Thanks, Geraint. Before I call members in, I think, Jess, you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, Geraint, and also thank you from me to members for the invitation to join Scrutiny this afternoon. Geraint outlined something of the long-term vision and ambition for the Cyfarthfa site, the sort of why for the work that we're doing. This is aligned, of course, with the recommendations of the Cyfarthfa Plan Master Plan, which is the blueprint and supporting framework for our work at the Cyfarthfa Foundation. It's a set of potential projects, ideas, themes and principles that would see the international significance of Merthyr's history and heritage at long last properly commemorated and celebrated, creating a space conducive with the telling of Merthyr's very big story in appropriately big ways, for the benefit of the local community, the region, for Wales and for visitors from further afield. All of this, of course, building on the fabulous work that's already being done by the museum team at the gallery, and doing so in such a way that will drive meaningful, measurable socio-economic and cultural renewal for our town, bringing new opportunities, new prosperity, improving outcomes in health, education, economy, community and civic pride, emulating and indeed shaping international best practice, and putting Merthyr back on the map for all of the right reasons. The opportunity and the future potential that we're dealing with at Cyfarthfa is tremendous, and on a personal level, I feel hugely privileged to be playing a small part in realising this exciting vision that will ensure this treasured local asset is sustainable for future generations of our community. But to bring us back to the present, there or thereabouts, 200 years on from when it was built, 2025 was a truly great year for Cyfarthfa, and one in which key impact and progress was achieved on two simultaneous fronts, really, that kind of typify the two-track approach that's been taken by the Foundation thus far. This comprising of, firstly, developing and progressing the capital plans for the site, and specifically for Cyfarthfa Castle itself, the first and most urgent priority and the one in most significant need of capital improvements. And secondly, whilst we're doing that, activating the wider park in the now through the coordination of diverse, high-quality programmes that are offering new leisure, recreation, family-friendly and community experiences and opportunities to drive footfall, to cultivate future audiences and to strengthen the existing connections with the Cyfarthfa site. For today's meeting, we've prepared a comprehensive report for members that summarises the key progress made across these two areas to date, specifically focusing on the last 12 months. 12 months that has included a couple of milestones: the completion of a strategic spatial master plan for the entire castle building to REBA 1 stage. This is a critical piece of work that responds to lots of structural analysis and capital studies, extensive community feedback, and to detailed business and operational modelling. It comprises a proposal that would see a fully redeveloped, structurally secured Cyfarthfa Castle with vastly enlarged, environmentally controlled gallery and exhibition spaces, an increase of 110% on current space, upgraded public facilities, dedicated education and community spaces, creative studios, new accessible entrances, much needed if you've ever tried to get into the existing museum with a pram or with a walking stick, public landscaping, multi-purpose hireable spaces suitable for enhanced programming, for events, for community celebrations, and in the long term, the return of the full museum and gallery collection back to the site. Currently only about 20% of it is on display and the rest is stored elsewhere, which would enable improved access, learning and engagement across various audiences. The business model and exercises that we've undertaken indicate that the building, redeveloped as such, would be sustainable in the long term, provided there was the type of increased visitor footfall that Geraint has outlined. And the estimated costs of developing the entirety of the castle, as set out in this REBA 1 strategic plan, are estimated to be £55 million. Given that type of cost, it is likely that the capital project would need to be delivered in 2 phases, and in February 2026, a submission was made to National Lottery Heritage Fund outlining a first phase capital project to a value of 32 million. That application is currently under consideration and we are expecting an outcome fairly imminently. 2025 also saw delivery, of course, of the Cyfarthfa 200 Bicentenary campaign led by the Foundation in partnership with the Council and key stakeholders. This year-long campaign was created to engage the local and wider community, increase visitor numbers, grow wider interest and maintain our engagement with key stakeholders, all supporting the case for further investment and funding. The campaign has been a landmark moment. It has truly galvanised support for Cyfarthfa and has played an integral role not just in significantly raising the profile of the site and of our intentions around the project, but in making measurable increases to visitor footfall, probably far greater than targets we might have set ourselves at the outset. The campaign built on the Foundation's existing programme of engagement events and activities, delivering over 200 events in a year collectively, with over 12, an increase from 34,000 the previous year. A partnership with BBC Cymru Wales in 2025 saw content about our town viewed by over 1.7 million people nationally. And as we know, it even brought the King and Queen to Cyfarthfa. And in May of this year, the Cyfarthfa 200 campaign also saw Cyfarthfa shortlisted alongside landmark national institutions that included the Natural History Museum, the Imperial War Museum, the Hayward Gallery at Southbank, and the University of Cambridge's Fitzwilliam. Now, here in Cyfarthfa read out as a finalist amongst such prestigious company in a room in London filled with 700 sector leaders at what's known as the Oscars of the museum world was an extremely proud moment, and also, I think, a really positive indicator of what's possible for the Cyfarthfa of the future. Taken together, these recent achievements have added tremendous credibility to the future plans for Cyfarthfa. They are proving that what we've got in the Cyfarthfa plan is not a fanciful pie-in-the-sky master plan, but it is a future that we are making tangible progress towards every single day in partnership with Merthyr Council, and of course supported by the critical conservation works that are currently being undertaken at the site, addressing the most serious areas of decline. We're now in 2026, and it could be a critical turning point in Cyfarthfa's future. It's vital now that we ensure the momentum of Cyfarthfa's bicentenary year is leveraged and built on, and that we show that 2025 is not an anomaly, but the start of an upward trend in the use and fortunes of the site and its diverse functions and all of the value that it can add. It is a means through which Merthyr can begin to use its past in the present to build its future. And we're really keen to explore with members today and in ongoing conversations how we can work together in partnership to ensure that all of that progress that we've reported on is maintained and that the necessary support and processes are in place that will enable us to go further together. Before we do move into discussions and questions, I did have a small point of clarification on the report that I wanted to share with members. At 5.9, it is stated that the National Lottery Heritage Fund, if successful, would unlock circa £10 million of investment for the realisation of the Phase 1 capital project. I wanted to clarify that whilst the full application to National Lottery is for £10 million, if that application is successful, That money would be granted in 2 tranches. An initial smaller investment to unlock a development phase of around about 2 years, during which further planning would take place, followed by a mid-term review and a delivery phase application to unlock the remaining funds to enable the capital project to start.
Thanks, Jess. Thanks, Geraint. Open up to questions. Just so everybody's aware, Zoe is online as well, so she may want to come in at some point. So, Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, and welcome all to the Chamber this afternoon. Jess, on that question about the lottery funding, when that's fresh in our minds, can I ask a question? What is the actual Welsh annual share for heritage projects with the National Lottery? Because I know it's relatively small, isn't it, compared to the UK?
Scotland, Wales,
Yeah.
Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, they get their kind of Barnett formula share of the Heritage Lottery Fund, but the Heritage Fund keeps a central fund, right? So a scheme could go to the Wales Committee of the Heritage Fund, and if it was above the limit of the money they've got, they can go to the UK fund for a top-up. So there is some flexibility in the system.
That's very positive news, because that did concern me.
Yeah.
So that is positive, because I remember back in 2017 on a cold October day when we got soaked during the charrette, didn't we, in the Cyfarthfa Castle, and it all really started from there, from those ideas, the Ian Ritchie project, and we've moved on almost 9 years really, from that date. And it is great now to see scaffolding on the castle and work taking place. Now, the castle is one part of the greater Cyfarthfa project. So, how long do you see the Cyfarthfa Castle Park project taking place to completion? And then when will we start with the furnaces across the river? Because how long do you think in total this would take?
It's going to take the next 5 years, isn't it, Jess? Sorry. It's going to take the next 5 years, certainly. A lot is going to depend on just when the funding is made available. I mean, there's a discussion to be had there, Heritage Lottery Fund, obviously. Discussion with the Welsh Government. Welsh Government doesn't have unlimited funds, but my understanding is that it is slightly easier for Welsh Government on the capital front than it is on the revenue front. But that's a discussion we are hoping to have with Welsh Government in the next few months.
It's a really important question. Just to kind of put it on. To clarify the timelines, we are hoping that the first phase of the project on the castle could be nearing completion by 2032. That would see around about 55% of the building redeveloped and reopened for use. The remaining sort of around about half of the building, the more modern side of the school side, would then be redeveloped as a subsequent capital project unless funding was available to do the building in an entirety, in which case we could get the castle done a lot sooner. But you're absolutely right to flag that the Cyfarthfa plan doesn't just relate to the building. We've made a strategic decision to focus on the building for a number of reasons. Grade 1 listed, we know that it has been in quite urgent need of repair and to address some of the structural issues it's been experiencing. And also, it is a really key asset through which we can support the further sustainability of the park and the site. If we create at Cyfarthfa a museum and gallery, a cultural destination of national significance that draws sufficient footfall to raise revenue, that revenue can then support the future ambitions to undertake other capital projects across the wider site and unlock the value of those.
Thanks, Jess. Now, in the Chamber, you had cross-party support, 100% all the way on this journey, yeah? When we started the purpose, what's it called? The vehicle, what was it called again now? The
Charrette.
No, the charrette, no, the SPV,
Oh,
the special purpose vehicle, yeah, right, which is the foundation. Now, through the bicentennial year, it showed how important it was, where you took really a lead on doing, alongside the council, on those celebrations, and it was a great success. Now, if the plans come to fruition on the gallery and the museum side of the castle, when do you think you might take over the management of the castle and the wider park?
I think there's the issue of asset, sorry, yeah, okay. The issue of asset transfer is a difficult one, because it's a big decision. But I've been looking at other models, you know, across the UK, and I think that it might be a mistake to delay asset transfer to the to the end of the development of the castle. I think at some point it makes sense for the foundation to be leading on that, because in terms of raising money via private charitable foundations, a local authority can't do that in the same way that a charitable foundation can do it. You know, we're already starting to make contact with very significant charities, and I think that asset transfer would actually ease that issue and make the management of the projects, you know, quite clear, because it's a very tough one. It's a big project for this council to handle.
It's, as members will know, there was a mandate from full council in 2023 setting out an agreement in principle that the assets at Cyfarthfa would transfer to the foundation for a minimum 99-year lease for their ongoing management and operation. That's still the plan. At the present time, we're working with council officers to determine really the terms and the timeline for asset transfer, and that will be a priority during the next 2 years, particularly if we go into a national lottery development phase, who, as a funder, will also want clarity around the timeline of that transfer. And the transfer of assets would, of course, necessitate a thorough, separate legal agreement. But as Geraint has outlined, it is a complex issue. Cyfarthfa is a Grade 1 listed building, currently in a state of some disrepair, but it's also the site of multiple teams of staff. It carries liabilities as a building currently, given its condition, and as a small organisation, we have to have, you know, assurances that we'd be able to accept those liabilities in the condition that the asset was transferred in. So there's a process of scenario modelling taking place that will be underpinned by robust legal advice over the next couple of years as we come to an agreement on that matter.
Thank you. You mentioned the visitors that attended, you know, the park last year, which was fantastic, really, over that period of time. But you did say it right when you mentioned Llanarthy, Geraint. You need attractions as well for people to come there. Right? Yes, we got the museum. There's a small park. We've lost the Bowls Club this year, so the Bowls Club isn't there anymore. So it's one part of, you know, of the history of the park and castle gone. Right. So what can we do in the short term to encourage more people to come to the park as far as events or attractions are concerned?
Events and attractions are a really critical way of increasing footfall. You're absolutely right to point that out. And we've been working to do what we can over the last couple of years and looking forward to deliver new events and leisure and recreation opportunities on the park that drive new footfall. So we have a programme of seasonal family-friendly trails that we deliver. The last trail that we had was our Easter trail, our Easter extravaganza, and that attracted over 1,000 people to the park across one day. We did a large celebration for the switch on of the Christmas lights on the Sequoia tree in November last year, with a laser show on the front of the castle, again very popular. And in all of the community consultation and engagement that we've undertaken to support the plans, feedback that we consistently receive is that people want to have more experiences and more opportunities to come to the park, and that we're trying to respond to that actively. So we have a community picnic, for example, planned this coming weekend on Saturday, where we're inviting local community members to join us with a picnic to celebrate National Picnic Week. But putting on events is complex, and in working within the requirements of the council's new events policy and in kind of ESAG requirements, there are, you know, costs that are being incurred that can be prohibitive in some ways to deliver an event at the type of scale that we like, given our own funding position as well. The loss of Shared Prosperity Fund recently, of course, has also impacted on our ability to deliver events at scale. In the last year, we were fortunate to have received some Shared Prosperity funding that enabled us to deliver community activities and engagement events. And coming into future years, with Local Growth Fund being predominantly capital, we're unlikely to receive a similar amount of funding. So there are challenges. But if I,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd just add to that, one particularly important thing is trying to keep those events as low cost as possible or free to the people of Merthyr. So yeah, one option would be that we introduce charges for people to attend those, but ultimately, we're trying to remove barriers to access so that people can enjoy those and, provide a benefit to their well-being by being physically active or engaging in arts and culture. So yes, whilst we absolutely recognise 100% all events need to be safe and we need to follow, advice that we get, sometimes trying to do it cost effectively can be a challenge.
Bit there to come in, right? So under 6.1, where you set out the plans for Cyfarthfa and where we want to be, I think the historical and cultural importance of Cyfarthfa and Merthyr, is world famous, isn't it, for what we've achieved. But I think what you've got underneath in the third bit, and that gem is basically building on what you just said, really, the socio-economic case as well. So can you enlarge on that a little bit for us, and how do you see that becoming one of the big priorities for the Cyfarthfa Foundation and for the general public of Merthyr?
Well, I mean, in part, it's to do with the whole kind of business case, isn't it? Maybe suddenly you are creating an institution that has a much bigger capability and capacity than it currently has, because it would be better funded, it would be using the whole of the building, it would have a more ambitious education program, and the sheer numbers coming to it. So you'll increase employment. You'll increase employment in the castle. You'll increase employment, across the park. You'll increase, I think, business in the town itself. I mean, one of the issues for me is what's the best linkage between Cyfarthfa and the centre of town. I personally would have loved to see the railway station move just outside the gate. Well, that's not gonna happen. But would there be a regular bus link between the station and the castle? So this has really big strategic effects, I think, throughout the town.
If I can add to that, I think what we've got potential to see delivered at Cyfarthfa is a best practice example of culture-led regeneration and a destination that delivers across multiple portfolios and intersectionally. We know that Cyfarthfa has huge capacity to tell the story of Merthyr's history and heritage. It's already a site for culture through the gallery functions of the museum and gallery, and a natural meeting place for artists. But given the fact that it's surrounded by beautiful parkland, over 160 acres, it also gives us an opportunity to respond to other strategic priorities around health, around well-being, around civic and community pride. Education is also a huge kind of element of the work at Cyfarthfa. The brilliant education team in the museum and gallery are already punching well above their weight in delivering services for local school children and school children across the region to tell the story of Merthyr's history and of what can be learned from it. And with upgraded facilities, there's tremendous potential for that to be expanded and responded to more fully, along with the natural kind of economic impact of increased visitor footfall to the town that Geraint has outlined. And I think what's really important as we take the project into the next stage is that we are pushing against all of those different levers that we can position Cyfarthfa within. So we're not just thinking of it as a culture project, we're thinking about how it can respond to priorities for health, for well-being, for community and social cohesion, and we're responding across all the different strategic frameworks that will be forthcoming from Welsh Government, from UK Government, and also that there are appropriate supporting strategic frameworks in place within Merthyr Tydfil as a local authority that embed the ambitions for Cyfarthfa in multi-portfolio ways. It would be brilliant if there was a culture and heritage strategy that outlined and committed to the generational project that we're trying to deliver at Cyfarthfa, of course, but it also really needs to be a part of local priorities for the economy, for regen, for health and well-being, so that it's properly knitted into our future ambitions for the town.
Thank you both, and well, all panel. I'm going to make him chomp a little bit longer. Dylan, Dylan, do you want to come in with your question?
Yeah, I just have one question. It's on page 27, paragraph 5.3, bullet point 4. Is a destination place to eat and drink and new commercial facilities to encourage new and repeat visitors. I was just wondering, because we do have a small cafe in the castle and a slightly bigger cafe in the splash park. Would these be expanded on, or will it be a completely new build within the Cyfarthfa building?
Well, Julie obviously does the best scones in Wales, and we're frequent users of the tea rooms in the cafe. We know from analysis of other cultural sites and from the feedback and consultation that we've done with potential users that places to eat and drink, food and drink facilities are critical in encouraging footfall and in particular repeat footfall to the site. So the proposals that we've developed as part of the REBA 1 master plan have vastly increased spaces for hospitality. A key part of that is to enable the building to respond to hosting events, celebrations, parties, conferences as a source of revenue generation. So the plan is that there'd be a vastly expanded commercial kitchen to enable those sorts of new income generating activities and services to be provided. We're not at a stage where we know exactly what the model for food and drink would look like in terms of service providers, but we don't definitely know that there'd be more space, more demand, and an increased kind of ability to respond to different types of hospitality.
Thank you.
Given the range of, you want gallery space, you want spaces for all these ancillary activities. I mean, that's why, ideally, we would love to do the castle as a complete thing. Doing it in 2 stages, it may be necessary financially, but it constrains your options in terms of balancing out what you put into the building.
Thank you. He's never waited so long. Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Chair. Before I answer my prepared questions, I want to follow on from what Councillor Guerin-Thomas asked, and that was in connection with the 32 million and the 10 million. 32 million would be 55% of the cost, according to the report, of what you need to do there. We're currently spending between Cadw and the council 4.5 million. Does that 4.5 million come out of any of those monies, or is that in addition what you're asking for?
It's in addition, in the sense that were it not for the current programme of conservation works that are happening, the capital project would be the equivalent higher. So all of the work that's happening now is essential repair work. None of it would be abortive in terms of the longer term plans. So effectively we're getting £4.5 million worth of the work that we need to do done now, and then building on top of that would be the £32 million capital project.
Right. I mean, I know the inside of the castle, back to front, having spent 5.5 years there when I was a grammar school pupil, and then later on in years, approximately nearly 20 years as a school governor, back and forth to the building. So when you say 55% would be done, up to where, if you were successful, up to where does that take us in the building?
If you imagine you're looking at the building, the first phase capital project focuses on the oldest mansion side of the building, so everything where the current museum and gallery is located and the floors above. Come across to the courtyard.
You're talking about the quadrangle, which is called the boys' entrance. The same site is still there, boys' entrance.
That's
so
right.
You're up to there, is it? If you
Everything to your right.
Everything to your right, plus the entirety of the quadrangle and the building immediately to the left, which is proposed as the location for the redeveloped commercial kitchen and cafe and restaurant location.
So that's the left going into the quadrangle.
That's right, yeah, the left-hand part of the building. I don't.
Yeah.
The query really is over the bit at the back, sorry. The query is over the bit at the back to the left-hand side, you know, where you've got a lot of the empty school spaces there. There's quite a lot of deterioration internally. And, you know, what we've got to work out in detail really is exactly what the content might be, because you've got several different elements. You've got the art collection, and I think there's a scope for increasing that. We've been talking to National Museum and the National Library in Aberystwyth. You know, they have huge collections of paintings, many of which could actually fit with the collection that they're in Cyfarthfa now. But the other thing I think is missing from Cyfarthfa presently, you know, in terms of the museum side of it, there are some really interesting artifacts and paintings and so on, but it doesn't tell clearly the story. And, you know, and it's a story really of not only the development of the industry, but all the kind of social and political developments, right? And we've got to tell that story better. And I think the one thing that's worth emphasizing, Cyfarthfa is going to have to stand proxy for the guests and the Homfrays. You know, it's got to stand proxy for Dowlais and Penydarren and all those. It's got to tell the story of the whole of Merthyr, not just the story of the Crauchetes. So, you know, because that I think makes it a much bigger story.
Jess, do you want to come in?
Yes, I was just going to show Councillor Jones an image to clarify my previous response. So this is the ground floor of the castle, and everything that you see coloured is proposed as part of the Phase 1 redevelopment, plus all of the upstairs to the right-hand side of the building. I can follow up in more detail. Yes, of course.
Sorry,